In what will undoubtedly go down as one of our best events ever, here is the recording of the Women in Security panel that was held on September 10th. A huge thank you to our sponsors, Gigamon, forescout, optiv, Bridges in Tech, and the Cloud Security Alliance. Their generous donations will allow for 11 people to get access to certification training and potentially change their lives forever. I really can't say enough about the women on this panel, the stories they shared, and the knowledge they imparted to all of us. It was truly my honor to share the virtual stage with all of you. Enjoy.
All right, everyone. In the interest of time, I think we will get started here. I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. You'll notice that everyone is muted since we do have quite a few attendees on this webinar. If you have a question, feel free to enter it into the chat. We will have a Q&A session at the end. Any questions that we're not able to get to, we will be sure to have someone follow up with you directly to answer those questions. With that being said, I'm going to kick it off to Matt Nelson with Optiv and the Cloud Security Alliance.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay, and thanks, everyone. Awesome turnout today, so thank you, everyone, for joining. This has been an event that we've been working on for quite some time, so we're super excited about bringing this one to you. Huge thanks to the sponsors and the panelists and everyone that's been involved. For anyone that doesn't know me, Matt Nelson, I'm a solutions architect for Optiv as well as president of the West Michigan Cloud Security Alliance. We have really worked hard to try to bring valuable and insightful events to the West Michigan area and beyond. And honestly, I think today is going to be the most insightful one that we've done yet. So with that, I'm going to quit talking. I say that and then I keep talking. We've got an awesome panel. We've got some stuff we're going to share at the end of what we're going to do after this event as well. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Joanna Udo from Bridges in Tech, who will be our host for today and get things started. And again, thank you everyone so much for joining. Joanna?
Thank you, Matt. Thank you everyone for joining what is going to be an incredible event. It is an honor for me to share this virtual stage with this amazing women who have volunteered their time to share their experiences with you. And I know that it's going to be extremely insightful and educational for you. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Joanna Udo. I am the founder of Bridges in Tech, which is a community for women of color in tech. We help women start and grow in technology careers. I have over 10 years of experience in IT across different areas of technology. I currently work for Spectrum Health as a technology consultant. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. I just want to give a brief highlight of what this is about. It's a Women in Security Summit, and of course, it's diversity in security. And oftentimes when we think about security, we just think of the very, very technical aspect, and we think it's only the two areas that exist. Well, you are going to find out, because this women represent different areas of security, from project management to leadership to sales to engineering, training, awareness, communications. It would show you that there is something for everyone. Everyone has the potential of a security career, a successful security career, and we're going to learn that today. But you didn't come here to listen to me talk on and on. So without further delay, I'm going to let the women introduce these lovely ladies, introduce themselves, starting with Toni.
Thanks, Joanna. And hi, everyone. I'm Toni Buhrke, and I'm the Worldwide Director of Channel and Inside Systems Engineering at Forescout Technologies. So I lead a global team of systems engineers, and we help our partners and distributors during the sales cycle of our solution. And our solution basically does active defense for the enterprise of things. And that means that my team and I are highly engaged in things like endpoint visibility, network segmentation, We also do things with integrations with other security tools, and last but not least, network access. So a wide variety of skill sets that we all do in our day-to-day jobs. And a lot of times as a female, I get asked, you know, how did you end up going into systems engineering? And so basically what I found was that even as a young child, I was always interested in how things worked. You know, I was the kid that took their toys apart all the time to figure out what was underneath and how it ticked. And so I started out doing things like help desk at certain companies. I did a little bit of programming. I worked in a systems integration group. Also did things like post-sales deployments. And one day I was approached by a vendor. Now keep in mind, I've been working at companies my whole career at this point, and asked if I wanted to do systems engineering. And when you come from a corporate world, it's kind of hard to make that switch, right? To go to the vendor side. But luckily I had confidence in it, and I just decided to just jump into it and try it. And I haven't looked back since then. So when I joined forescout over 12 years ago, we were a small little startup, and one of my proudest accomplishments was really being a part of growing that company, building a systems engineering team, setting up things like onboarding, you know, how to motivate people, how to keep people technically fresh, because we know there's always new things coming out in the technology world all the time, and that can be a real challenge. So there were a few things along my path that really helped me, one of which was mentors. I had some really strong and influential people in my life that guided me and helped me through some of those stressful times where I didn't know what to do and what my next steps were. So being a mentor for others is now a really big priority for me. Also going back to school and getting, you know, continuing education, you know, being technical. I went back and got my master's in business because I wanted to kind of have a little bit more of a business acumen. And then when I looked at taking on a global role, I decided to get a CISSP certification, which I'm glad I did. It was one of the hardest tests I've ever taken, but since it's globally recognized, it really helped me with credibility on the world stage. And that's one thing that you'll find as you get into tech. There's a lot of different certifications, and hopefully we can clarify some of that for you later in the call. So thanks for joining today. Hopefully you'll get some tidbits out of our discussion from all of the other great panelists that we have.
Thank you so much, Toni. Elizabeth?
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Hood. I'm the Senior Manager of Field Services at Michigan State University. I also am a director of our union board and the chairperson for our Empower IT conference, which helps support women in IT and people of color as well. Go white, thank you. As with everyone here on this panel, everyone's story is unique and special. I never had planned to be in IT. That was just not something I ever thought of. And about 15 years ago, I was a young mother and I didn't have a job. I had a 2-month-old at the time, so I was looking everywhere for a job. I ended up getting one at a collection agency working as a bookkeeper. And after about 3 months of being there, the network IT manager pulled me aside and just asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And that really resonated with me because I thought I was doing what grown-ups do, which is have a job and pay bills. And so he really was a great mentor for me and someone who really put me on the path forward. He also, offered me a job as a PC technician with his team. And all I knew was how to play video games on a computer at the time. I really didn't know much more than that. But with his mentorship and guidance, I ended up getting most of my CompTIA certifications, my A+ and Net+, along with Security+, because he wanted to coach me and make me more valuable to the world and be a great asset for multiple companies. That was 14 years ago. Now 9 years I've been at Michigan State. And I started at Michigan State as just a desktop technician. I took a job there because MSU is a great place to work. And after about 9 years now, I've moved up from being a lowly little desktop technician to being a leader in field services. We have about 100 people on our team that do 3 different and very unique services. We do classroom support for our faculty and staff and students that are on campus, along with desktop support and our executive support team that I had the opportunity to be able to help create because, again, I had great mentors and coaches along the way to get me what I wanted. Again, I didn't ever never envisioned myself in IT. And, you know, today we're talking about things that are diverse, right? And the diversity of that. Everyone on this panel has a fantastic education and background, right? MBAs, we have other people that'll have an opportunity to tell their story, so I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But I am not one of those. I still do not even have my bachelor's degree. My certifications got me where I'm at, but mentorship and support from others got me where I'll be. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm happy to help out where I can. So
thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks.
All right, Deepa.
Good morning, everyone, from an Orange Bay area. So my name is Deepa Aggarwal. I'm a senior director at Gigamon. So the teams I manage focus on core engineering as well as what we call solutions engineering. And I think Toni referred to that, and that is one of the roles where I get to interact with the customers a lot, help them solve their problems using Gigamon products in the best possible way. A little bit about Gigamon. We are a company, we are a market leader for what we call visibility and analytics platform. And the products actually support the traffic in transition, both in physical data center, public and private cloud. And we also have our products which allow you to detect and respond to the security threats. So the company is really focused on security and helping the customers secure their business. Going back to myself, my career started when I moved from India. I had completed my master's in computer science and just arrived in Bay Area, the heart of everything related to IT, computers, great hub for various companies. And so I joined Sun Microsystems. At that time, it was one of the premier companies. What sets me apart from what I have noticed from a lot of people is my passion to try new things, put myself out, take risk. And not every time I succeeded, but I continuously like to stay at the edge of technology, right? So I worked for a long time at Sun Microsystems, but changed my career completely, or the technology field, I can say, completely, from being a compilers engineer to a middleware application server, integration server engineer, manager, to a director of server and storage unit, where I was leading the quality and operating system development aspects, right? So that was at Sun. Around 2010, there was, the cloud became the thing of technology, right? And VMware was one of the companies which was leading that initiative. And so I jumped with 2 feet. I took a much smaller role than I was working at Sun Microsystems, just because I wanted to learn cloud technology from inside out. And that's what I enjoyed for almost 4 years before I got an opportunity at Gigamon. And when I was interviewing, 2 things I was looking for is my entire career, I was raising 2 kids, but I really at heart wanted to work for a startup, right? And Gigamon was security. I did not know as. So in my interview, I was asked a couple of times, are you sure you want to join this company? And I basically took that chance, and it will be 6 years in January. By staying at the edge of technology and putting myself out, one thing I can say for sure, I've absolutely enjoyed every single day of my career, right? So there is always something new to learn. There is always something which I can contribute. Talking about my leadership background, I think Toni said it really well, and Elizabeth also alluded to that. Mentorship, I both offer myself and had the opportunity to have mentors who guided me, right? And again, one of the which I really want to leave everybody with is follow your passion yourself, and that's what will take you places. So thank you everyone, and for this opportunity, and I'll be there for the discussion later on. Thanks.
Thank you, Deepa. Aphrodite, mostly known as Apple.
Hi, I'm Aphrodite Jones. Everyone just calls me Apple. Yes, it is a nickname I've had my entire life. And of course, all the computer jokes come with it. Currently, I work for Spectrum Health. I am their lead privacy and information security awareness training, and do a lot of communications and education and assist projects for their communication pieces. For my origin story, essentially, I decided when I was about 6 that I wanted to be Wonder Woman. I'm old enough to have seen it on television, right? And I just knew that I wanted to change the world somehow. And originally, my goal was to be a biologist. And in college, I took computer classes along with my science classes and found that I really enjoyed that. And more than anything, what I enjoyed was helping others learn. Spent a lot of time in the lab, not doing my own work because it was done, but assisting others with theirs. And found that what I really just enjoyed was helping people find their own passion. I'm a big believer in the fact that if you are doing what you're passionate about, work becomes very fun and easy and accomplishable. And if you're going against the grain, it's like trying to canoe up a river the wrong way, right? And so I spent, while I was in college doing my undergrad in network management, I spent some time as a medical biller. Yes, that's a whole nother career, which came full circle when I came to Spectrum Health, just the knowledge of the background in medical. But I spent 20 years in higher ed. And so straight out of my undergrad, I was asked to teach. And I was still working as a medical biller. I decided I was going to try it. 4 weeks into that class, I gave my notice and decided I was going to jump full in, which was a little scary because I was an adjunct at that time, and anybody who does adjunct teaching knows that that is not a guarantee. Doesn't come with benefit, doesn't come with a lot of money, but I just really enjoyed it and just jumped right in, and then spent 20 plus years at Davenport. When I left Davenport, I was the associate dean for the College of Technology. Davenport was actually a cutting edge school that started security programs in their curriculum very early on, and was a center of academic excellence in both digital forensics and cyber defense. And so I led those designations and the master's program, and helped decide if students would get into the master's program. And I still serve on a bunch of technology curriculum advisory boards for various colleges and high schools and career and tech education centers, because I believe very strongly in inspiring the youth to figure out how they fit. And currently I'm also the president for the Grand Rapids ISSA team. So I'm excited to be here. I love to mentor, I love to meet colleagues and just understand the industry. I'm a big proponent of understanding your community and being a part of it.
Thank you, Apple. Rebecca?
Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca Harvey, and I currently work in software sales for an identity governance company called SailPoint Technologies. I got my start in tech early, back in the junior high school days, shortly after the internet had made its debut. My mom owned one of the first ISPs in our area, and I worked for her company in my spare time. Ironically, my mom is now a developer engineer in the identity governance space. So all of you tech mamas out there, you really are shaping the next generation. At my mom's business, I did everything from work with DNS, taking apart computers and installing new parts, to accounting, customer service, user training, and some sales. When it came time to pick a major in college, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I decided to continue down the technology path, since it was something familiar and a quickly growing field. I had taken some computer programming classes, and although I found it challenging and oddly satisfying in the same way that puzzles are, I didn't feel I wanted to spend my days writing code. So I decided to major in ITS, Information Technologies, which at the time was under the School of Telecommunications at Michigan State University. And by the way, I don't think you need a degree to be successful in IT or cybersecurity, so don't let that stand in your way. After graduating, I experimented with both technical roles and business roles, and ended up spending the majority of my career on the business side. And although my credibility instantly went down the moment I took a sales position, I have found that the sales roles have been the most challenging and rewarding of my career. The thing about sales, if you're any good at your job, is that you're an investigator and problem solver first and foremost. You have to really understand your customer's business and its strengths and challenges. And as you uncover operational and technological problems, risks, or inefficiencies, you have to understand the technology well enough to articulate how your solutions and automation, for example, can add value to the business and reduce risk across the organization. With complex security and governance software sales, it's really about helping organizations transform how they operate in order to improve their security posture, reduce compliance costs, or improve audit performance. So essentially, you're helping them become more agile and operationally efficient. So in reality, what you're doing is you're selling change. You're a change agent, which isn't always the most popular role, but it can be very rewarding. So in addition to my day job, I am committed to helping women succeed in the field of cybersecurity. So a friend of mine, Ranu Parmar, a tech VP at Comerica Bank, and I co-founded the Women's Security Alliance, or WAMSA.org. We now have a vibrant board of community leaders whose efforts have allowed WAMSA to take on a life of its own. WAMSA, for those who aren't familiar, is a nonprofit organization that empowers women in cybersecurity by aligning her strengths and interests to a cybersecurity career path. You can find out more about WAMSA going to WOMSA.org. Our resources are free to anyone who wishes to get involved as a member or a mentor, so check us out. In addition to my day job and the work I do in the community, I have a husband, 2 teenage sons, and the sweetest dog ever. So a big thank you to Bridges in Tech for having me on the panel today.
Thank you, Rebecca. That was great. All right, Asia, you're up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Asia Shadipo. I am a senior project manager serving in the role of Scrum Master at Amway. Just for reference, Amway is a consumer goods company selling healthcare, beauty, and home care products. I've been with that company actually just a little bit under 3 months now. I recently transferred over from Spectrum Health, like a lot of the people on this panel, and I have been having a ton of fun there. Right now, I'll say there is, my experience in tech has been pretty cookie cutter, I'll say, if it makes sense. Girl goes to college, girl gets an internship, girl goes to school, and girl works a job. But it was more of how I got started that wasn't as cookie cutter. I actually originally from Detroit. I don't know, being a Black woman in Detroit growing up, I never imagined a career in tech. Heck, my tech support was really helping my parents install CD-ROMs and just installing software on the computer. So going into my first computer programming class, I'm like, oh, I'm crazy. Funny enough, I was just looking at Facebook yesterday and there was a post that I posted and I said, oh, I'm sitting in the lab programming for hours. I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm doing this. And I think this is fun. So to Rebecca's point, like sort of coming out of that, I never thought that, I actually knew that I didn't really want to go into the programming route. So I have a degree from Grand Valley in computer information systems with a business minor. And it was there where I got some exposure to project management. I have spent a lot of my time, while a lot of my time professionally is done running projects. I know a lot of the people on this panel are in cybersecurity, but I'll say that cybersecurity is not just a role, it's a responsibility for everyone. I am not directly in cybersecurity, but a lot of the projects as project manager, it's my responsibility to make sure that the products and the software that we're introducing to the organization is assessed and we understand the risks and security hazards and threats that were introduced into the organization. So I have a lot of experience in making sure that we follow the right protocols, and we make sure that we understand the sort of security risks that we're introducing. I will say that coming out of this panel, I'm hoping that you guys can walk away with a few things. My journey has primarily been focused around representation, exposure, and network. I'd say that using your network, I was involved in Grand Valley pretty heavily in a few student organizations. I always went to career fairs, and actually that's where I got my start in my internship. Really having the right people when you need those people are really important, and fostering those relationships ahead of time are really key. I had exposure, not just as tech support in my family, but my parents actually invested on Saturdays exposing me to DAP, STEP, and SEMA courses. They're STEM programs that occurred every Saturday for inner city youth in Detroit to expose them to STEM careers. And it was that actually sort of drove me to majoring in computer information systems. And while I didn't go the programming route, having that contextual technical knowledge is really helpful as I work with those IT teams today. So full circle, I'm hoping that you guys get a ton out of this panel today. And I look forward to having a conversation with you guys as well as the other women I'm sharing this virtual stage with.
Thank you, Asia. I told you we had an amazing panel. So thank you for the introductions and welcome. So we'll get the show started. And the format that I'm using is that I have some questions prepared that I would ask these ladies. And I would later on take questions as time permits. One of the things in cybersecurity that you hear often is that there is a pipeline shortage, right? Like shortage pipeline. I think I'm saying it wrong. One of those two words. But there are lots of women out there, and there are lots of different people out there that are interested in this career. My first question is going to go to the panel asking, how can we help diversify our teams? Because diversifying the teams is not going to only help close the talent pipeline, but it is also going to help come up with innovative solutions to deal with all of the diverse attacks that we have and issues that we currently face. So I'm going to go to Deepa to start on this one, what leaders can do to help diversify their teams.
Absolutely. And I think not only I can provide some tips, but I can share from my experience, right? So two things I feel are really important is providing a safe environment where everybody has an equal voice. That is for the people who are already on the team, that everybody is getting an opportunity to be heard, to contribute, to look for opportunities to grow and show their talent, right? So that is one thing as a leader, keeping an eye for that. If there are shy people, if there are people who are introvert, you're bringing them out. And that is one way to bring the diverse opinion and diversity of, you can say, folks on your team, because once the team is in that mode, you attract more such people, right? The people through reference will want to come and join a team where they feel they will have the right opportunity. So that is first thing as a leader, providing that starting place for everybody, all voices to be heard. The second thing is, whenever there is an opportunity to hire and expand your team, looking for and reaching out to not just standard, a few companies, a few places, large sites, but inviting from various academic institutes. And I think that's where you can actually reach out and create a diverse workforce, because people who are still in education, they're much more open to try new things and learn and grow into some field, and actually expanding your field from where you want to recruit and bring the talent on board, right? So those are the two things I've tried, is supporting your current teams and their voices, as well as expanding it from diverse background.
Thank you, Deepa. Elizabeth, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, so I agree with, everything that Deepa said. And to add to that, diversity isn't just how we look, our, what sex we are or what religious beliefs we have, right? Yeah, those are absolutely important, and we need to make sure that our teams are representative of the people we serve and representative of the society that we have, right? But those are the inherent diversity, the attributes that we're born with, but there's also the acquired diversity, different ways of thinking, by what your experiences are, and that kind of diversity matters too. And for me, in my area and my teams, it starts with improving our recruitment. When we wanted to tackle this right at the beginning, the first things that we did were we reviewed our job descriptions to make sure that they're more gender neutral terms, that the language would allow for everyone to feel like they were represented and had an equal chance at that posting when we put it up. One of the things that we did as well, or I would advise anyone to do, is to look at your HR policies and see what kind of things are there for offering some flex scheduling, to help promote a work-life balance within your organization. And that's not just saying the words, that's showing work-life balance, that your leaders are also showing that. Obviously right now at Michigan State, our IT department, almost all of them are working remotely at home. So having that flex scheduling is very, very important. I have 3 boys, and all of them this is their first day of school, and they are at home online. So the fact my internet hasn't cut out yet makes me wonder what they're actually doing downstairs in the basement, because I don't think that they're actually in their Zoom classes right now. But, those are things that are really important and help make people feel more, it can't just be standard 8 to 5 anymore with the pandemic that we're in, and it shouldn't be. We have to allow women the opportunity to be able to be participants, but also not at work, but in their lives as well. And the other thing that we make sure to do when you're doing recruitment is make sure that your interview committee is diverse as well and inclusive of everyone's thoughts and ideas. It can't, if you really want to see change, it has to start at the top. And it has to start with you if you're the leader of that group. Making sure that the questions that are asked in the interview are appropriate and support the culture that you want to see in your organization as well. Other things that we've done, and I support what Deepa said, is we have to stop and listen, not just to our employees, but to others and everyone we interact with. Reflect on the conversations that we're having to make sure that it is inclusive. You can't just keep having, I think Rebecca gave a great example yesterday, so I won't steal her thunder too much, about, how the guys would go out and play, golf together. And that doesn't feel very inclusive of the women in the department, because maybe we don't play golf. Maybe we don't get even asked. And so we have to make sure that we're at the top, the change that we want to see, and use our voices and feel confident enough to do that. Because as Deepa said, there are people that are shy and don't feel comfortable in meetings. And in the 5 minutes I've been talking, you can tell that's not a problem for me. So to make sure that I use that privilege that I have and the personality I have to allow others to have the opportunity to speak is very, very important. And one other thing, just real quick, I think that we get lost a lot in IT is we talk a lot about what certifications people need to have. Again, back to what Rebecca talked about, you don't have to have a degree to be in IT. Certifications are important, but I think that the thing that's most important, not just for women, but for everyone who is in IT, is empathy and self-awareness. And that's not negotiable. That is something we all have to make sure that everyone is represented.
Can I add one thing to that? I totally agree with everything Elizabeth said, and I would encourage leaders to work with HR, right? Your HR people are not tech people. And if you tell them that you need a specific skill or a specific certification, they're really gonna expect that that's what you need. So be really careful and think about those differences between requirements and preferences, right? So realizing that, even, and especially if you have technical controls on your resume review before people see them, right? Thinking about how people are eliminated and why, right? Do they really need to be eliminated because they don't have a CSSP, or like Elizabeth said, they don't have a specific degree? Some of my favorite tech people do not have tech degrees, they have degrees in other things.
Thank you for that, Apple. AJ, do you have something to add to that?
I was going to offer a perspective that just in the involvement I've had in some of the employee resource groups I've been a part of at my companies, I think that is a really great resource for hiring managers to tap directly into. So between the inclusion and diversity teams and the employee resource groups available at your companies, there are already individuals that have given of themselves, their time, who want to make a real difference in the company, who want to give of themselves and want to develop themselves professionally. And I think that just giving them an opportunity to step up into that role and tap on the shoulders of the people who are already doing great work to better the organization is a great resource to tap into.
Thank you for that. Great comment on that. My next question goes, there are a lot of women that have degrees in technology as a whole, and a lot of them they try to find jobs and they try to get into the workforce, and something happens that makes them leave the workforce because they can't handle it. So I want to ask, what are some of the challenges that you as a woman in security have faced, and how did you overcome that so that others can learn these lessons and, you know, figure out how to stay in the workforce? Because we don't need them leaving, we want them to stay. I'm going to go to Rebecca to start this one off.
Yeah, thank you. So, I think one of the things that that Elizabeth started to address earlier was we talked a little bit about, and if you could, Joanna, would you mind repeating the last part of that question? It cut out for me a bit, and I just want to make sure I have the right question.
Oh, no problem. So what are some of the challenges that you faced as a woman in security, and how did you overcome it so that others can learn?
Okay, that's what I thought you said. So as Elizabeth mentioned, there's something that I like to call the boys club. And I don't mean that to offend any of the men on here. We love you all, especially your allyship. But there are situations where, you know, women can feel left out at times. You know, the golf example is a good one. Going out with the boys, you know, drinking after work is another good one. Not all women feel comfortable doing that or being part of that scene. So, if your role really depends on developing those relationships and your livelihood depends on that, given that there are definitely more men in IT and cybersecurity in general, some of the things that that I've learned, and you know, we talked about this yesterday, that we've all done to try to overcome that a bit, is to try to build relationships in other ways, maybe during office hours or work hours, just reaching out a little bit more and understanding how you can get involved in things, maybe starting your own events and inviting people to those. And one suggestion that I really liked was asking for advice, you know, asking some of these guys, what can I do to be more part of things and spend more time with you or with the group? And, you know, most of the time they are, you know, they want to help, they want to be allies, and, you know, they don't recognize that anybody may even be feeling left out. So, so that would be my suggestion to the boys club dilemma.
Thank you, Rebecca. Apple, would you like to share some tips on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's questions coming in that are similar to this, so I agree that it's an important topic. I think one of the things for me personally, I came up in technology at a time when there were actually more women in technology than there are now, which is a sad state of affairs, if you ask me. Um, and so I've always like tried to reflect on the challenges piece, and maybe I was blind to some of it, but I told the ladies a couple of days ago that when I was reading Sheryl Sandberg's book, and I was really intrigued by her account because she talks about how she did not really take herself into, being a role model for women in technology, and that she didn't see it as her responsibility. And that's one of my favorite chapters, actually, is when she talks about how she came to feel responsible because of one of her own personal issues and realizing that she had a voice. But there's a chapter where she talks about how women are interrupted in meetings, and women are interrupted by women, and they're also interrupted by men, and that men are almost never interrupted by anyone. And I thought, well, that's not true. And so I took that back to work into one of my recurring regular leader meetings and watched, and it was true. And I put out an idea to solve a problem, and it was one that I was fairly passionate about. And that idea was not only not taken well, but became something my boss thought she needed to like talk to me about later about how I presented it. But half an hour into that meeting, another person on that team who was male gave out the same idea, actually iterated in a way that it didn't make as much sense because I don't think he understood it because it wasn't his idea. I think he was trying to support me, but he got praised by everyone at the table for that idea that was not taken when I presented it. It was a real eye-opener, and I think what I took away from that as I moved into my career further was really to try to know my value and how to articulate it. I think as women, we don't do that. We've even made jokes outside of all of the audience about how, we're not always used to talking about ourselves. And people who know me know I like to talk about myself, and that's something I grew in the last probably decade or so. And I think it's important. You have to know your value. You have to articulate your value. You have to have that value on your resume, because you will never get to be in an interview if your resume doesn't pass forward, right? And so all of those steps and stages are very important. And I think one of the things that we as women don't do as well is negotiate and stick up for our value. And it was something I was determined to do in my career at this stage and do now. And I've learned that, if you're a top candidate, no one's going to not choose you because you've asked for another $5,000 or you've asked if there's a reimbursement for X, right? Worst that's going to happen is someone says, no, we can't do that, right? And then you have to make a choice. But to not ask just means you'll never be offered. And so just understanding what are your assets, what do you have to bring to the table, how can you show that value? It's not about competing against other people. It's about really knowing your key skill sets and how those factor into a job. And being able to translate, when I left education and moved into Spectrum Health, I had to translate a lot of what I've done in education and show that value in a field that was not education. And I think it's really important for people to understand that that's important too, right? Those experiences you have don't become irrelevant because you've changed fields or changed roles or changed industries. It's just about showing how those can translate into something. So I think that that's one of the things that I try to not only do for myself, but try to encourage everyone, frankly, in technology to be able to do. You can't just ask for money and not be able to share why you think you deserve it, right? You need to know those things about yourself. The last time I went into an interview, I prepped maybe 50 hours, did some training, wrote a lot of things out about my resume, put examples, redid my resume. I really enjoy resumes. I tell when people ask me how many hours do you have in your resume, I say like 4,000 hours, right? Like it needs to be you, it needs to reflect you, and it needs to be something that you can talk about. The worst thing I've ever seen in an interview that I was on the interview panel was when someone asked a question off someone's resume they didn't actually know what they were being asked. They were like, what are you talking about? And they had to read their own resume. That's a really big downside. So just always understand your own value and how you're going to articulate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Does anyone else want to add to that?
Joanna, I will add a very quick point, something which I have experienced personally, so might help. As a woman, I have noticed is I like to respect my role and responsibility. I don't like to step over other people's space, but I have seen the other way happening. And what I realized, so that is one of the challenges, right? People will come and grab or start doing some things which maybe you consider as part of your responsibility. One thing which I have noticed helps is look for the white space around your role and responsibilities. And that's one challenge I have overcome in the recent past is you can expand your role. You can do more than you can grow in your role by watching out and looking for those opportunities. And as I think Apple said very beautifully, know yourself, know your strength, where you can add value, and pick up some of those places. And that gets appreciated and recognized really well when you do some of those things. So I just thought I'll add that as a comment.
Thank you, Deepa. All right, so I imagine there are probably some people here that are just starting out in their security career. What are some tips that you can give to them that they should focus on, you know, in addition to sharpening their skills and all that? What would you recommend that they do as a person that's just starting out their career? I'm gonna go to Toni to start this one out.
Oh, thanks, Joanna. So some of the recommendations I have are to join local groups, you know, like the ISSA chapters, those focus on IT in general. There's lots of other like lean in circles, which I found to be very beneficial. Some of them are technical, some of them are not, but you can choose which ones you want to join, and it helps you network with people in your community. I also really recommend, you know, looking for a mentor. You know, we've all mentioned that it's really critical to have someone that you can talk to, even if they don't work in the same industry, that you can bounce ideas off of or talk about challenges or things like that. And I found that having a wide variety of different mentors has really helped me in my career. Another aspect of starting out in the industry is really following on social media some of the industry influencers, or even following your mentors and learning about and keeping up with what's going on in the industry, staying aware of some of the trends, because I have friends that actually are very active on social media. And branding has become a big part about not only how we share information in the whole IT industry, but how we get to know each other, right? And how we network with each other. And a lot of times, you know, when I have had friends switch roles, they don't even really actually look for a job. The job comes to them, because the network that you build when you have people on social media or from these groups are your allies, right, in IT. And they might give you that little nudge to go apply for that job that you maybe don't have the confidence to do on your own. And that's the other thing that I want to drive home too, and that's an important point that Elizabeth brought out. You know, job descriptions, women don't apply, from what I've read on some of the lean-in reports, unless they meet most of the criteria of the job description, right? So we have to really get that confidence to go in there and try a role that maybe we're not ready for, and use your mentors and use your allies to help you prepare for it. And you've got it, right? So don't be shy, tap into people, get that advice. We're all here to help each other and empower each other.
Awesome. Thank you, Toni. Rebecca, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is to find a mentor. And I don't think there's any of us here who haven't been mentored, and most of us now are on the other side of it or doing both. And I think that's really critical to helping roadmap your career path and get to that next step. I believe there's going to be a link to the WAMSO site at the end, where if you don't know how to get a mentor, you can go through that organization and they will pair you with a mentor that aligns to your strengths and your career path. So that would be my number one piece of advice, is to get that relationship going.
Thank you, Rebecca. Apple, you want to add?
Sure. I think one of the things too, like I liked what was said about having multiple mentors. I think you need to understand what you might need a mentor for. When I see people who get mentors who really are very closely aligned to who they already are, you know, and maybe just in a higher level leadership position, they're not really going to grow as much as if they pick a mentor who is not like who they are, right? So it doesn't matter if that means it's diversity and how we look or how we speak or how we think, just realizing that you have to know what your weaknesses are and look for a mentor who's going to help you grow in that space. You don't look for a mentor who has the same strengths you do, because that's not going to give you the growth.
Yeah, I love that. Some of the people that I have had as mentors in the past have been direct opposites of me. I have asked white men to mentor me, and that are like, we have nothing in common, right? But they are in a role and they're successful, and I feel like there is something that I can learn from them. So that is a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Right, I'm going to jump to the next question. Can you believe it's almost an hour? So this question is for those that have, they're already in the workforce, they've been there a while. They don't really know what they should do next. What can they do to set themselves apart from everybody that's in the field, the same experience, so that they can set themselves up for success or to get to the next level? I'm going to start off, Elizabeth, with this one.
Sure. So a couple of different things I think that you can do, or at least that helped me, was, again, I think I'm feeling a theme here, mentorship. So I went to people that I trust and know, not just in my, people that are always looking out for me, right? Who have my best interest at heart, and said, I'm feeling very stagnant. I feel like that I can't grow anymore in the role that I am, and I'm ready to do something else. Help me figure out how to do what something else is. And so I had a really great conversation with a couple of my mentors and used networking, right? Back to that. I think that that's something that's really helped me, is networking within, my for Michigan State, our networks are huge, right? So within Michigan State and different groups that we partner with and work with, and kind of talk through what my likes are, what I thought I wanted to see myself doing, right? What is it that makes me happy to get out of bed in the morning and get ready to go to work? What am I passionate about? And having those conversations with my mentors really helped me be able to figure out what I wanted to do next and articulate it well to my boss when it was time to have that conversation. I think the other thing too that's really important is that you take that and I lost my choo-choo train. I knew that was going to happen to me. I should have wrote it down. We were talking about notes and I didn't do it every time. Yeah, so it's that, but it's advocating for yourself. And the other part too is, I think that it worked so well for me because I took the time to do it. And I make it a point to tell my managers that report to me that you and your team need to allocate some of your time every week, or at least every month, to mentoring, and not even, each other, right? As well as networking out. So I always try to reach out to my staff and ask them, so who's new that you met today? Who did you meet this week? Because that's really important that it's not just important for my service and what I provide to our campus community, but it's also important for them to be able to see who it is that they support and be able to make new connections.
Thank you. Apple, you want to take a stab at that question as well?
Sure. I am a big proponent of networking. I think it's really important. One of the things that I would say is when I found myself after 20 years out in the field, I was reached out to apply for the job that I'm currently in by a couple people. And I was working with a career coach, and he said to me, when I called him to tell him I got the job at Spectrum, he called me and said, "How did you even get an interview? I have had clients who've tried 7 times to get an interview." And my response was simply very blunt. And I said, well, I don't network when I need something from my network, right? I think it's really important to realize that I've seen people come to a user group that you've never seen, and then they're wandering around trying to meet a bunch of people in a hurry and talking about how they need a job, and no one's ever seen them before now, right? And so it's important to understand that networking is a two-way street, right? What I had said to him was that I networked for years, not because I was trying to build opportunities for me, but because I was trying to give back opportunities to my community. And so, you know, you have to understand that you have to be as engaged in your community as you want your community to be in you. So that's kind of what I have to say about it too. So I think what Elizabeth says is amazing, and I just add that because I think it's really important to not take advantage of the network or assume that the network gives you something.
Thank you for that. Does anyone else want to add something to that?
So Joanna, I would like to add something. So one thing which sets some people apart from others is their willingness to take on more and putting yourself out, which is kind of saying the same thing in 2 different ways. And to give you an example, as leader, I have a huge team, and there are people who are always either stressed out, always complaining about how much they are overworked, versus some people who are willing to go that extra mile. So the new opportunities, something interesting comes my way, I'm looking for people who are willing to go that extra mile without complaining. And that's how they grow, right? So that's the where the next opportunity might come. So it's not that you put extra hours to make this happen, but be aware of that. If you're willing to go that extra mile, then the opportunities can come to you, right? So setting yourself apart from a team which is really on the leading edge, but you are the one who is willing to try something when there is an opportunity. And then obviously by putting yourself out means making sure that your leader or the colleagues of your peers of your leaders, they kind of know what your strengths are, who you are, and what are the things you're looking for. So be open to share your the things which you may want to try, and when the opportunity comes, that might actually walk to you.
Thank you for that. I'm going to go to one last question before we take questions from the audience. This question, I know that there are allies here today. There is a lot of women, but there is also allies. What can allies do to support women on their teams or the organization as a whole? I'm just taking volunteers for this. Who wants to go first?
Well, I think as we talk about anything around diversity right now, it's the same, right? Speak up when you need to, right? You're not really an ally if you watch someone be berated or just have little comments or things that you know are not correct if you're not willing to speak up, right? So whether that is another woman or it's a man in the room, you know, I think one of the things that we see regularly, and I didn't notice it a lot until I read Cheryl's book and thought about it, but this, don't be so emotional about that, or man, that's very passionate of you. Somehow things like that, statements like that for women, passion, emotion is somehow a negative, where it's a strength and it's not considered emotion when it's the same passion as put out by men. So call those things out. I think it's important as an ally to say, hey, you know, she has a voice too. That's a good idea. Whatever it is to like support. One of the other things that I like to do to be an ally to any of my coworkers is I like to recognize people. Nice emails. People forget sometimes that a simple email to someone's boss is a huge way to recognize them, to build a relationship, to build trust with people. And frankly, it's also not a bad way to recognize your own piece if you've collaborated with them without putting yourself out there in a way that it sounds like an ego statement, right? Because if you're recognizing a project you collaborated on and people on it, you're also recognizing your own contribution at the same time. So that's kind of what I guess I would share.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add something to that?
Yeah, one thing an ally can do too is to make sure if you're involved in a project or on a meeting, bring other people in, add that diversity into that project. Maybe they weren't invited, but make sure that someone has a seat at the table and be the person that opens the door for them to join.
That's great. Thank you, Toni.
And I'll just add one more thing.
Sure.
I was just going to say that all these are great. And in addition to that, I'd say as an ally, I think the first and most important thing is to just establish this safe environment, great and good intention that this is coming from a safe space, establish your credibility with that individual and then proceed. So whatever comes after that, you know, it's with positive intent. In whatever you're saying. I mean, you could even get positive feedback and constructive feedback from others, but again, where is that coming from? Establish that safe space, establish that credibility.
I love that. I would also add, based off of that, that we also should assume good intentions until proven otherwise, right? So while the allies are coming from a place of good intention, we're also assuming that they were also coming from their thinking good intentions, and they didn't mean for that to happen. But of course, if it happens more than once, then you know, and we can start the calling out. All right, with that said, I am going to jump into some of this question. That's all the prepared questions I had. Okay, I lied. I'm not jumping into that. Screen's back on. We're sharing screen. And there was one question about how additional resources for people. So it's actually a page that we made for this. WAMSA, Bridges and Tech, ISSA, these are all groups that you can go to learn different things and connect with people, learn the tools and all of that. Bridges and Tech, we actually have a weekly happy hour every Wednesdays at 6 p.m. And it's pretty open format. So if you have questions, if you need to find a mentor, if you need to meet new people, it's like all out buffet. So join us. And WAMSA, I believe, have some events as well, and they have like different resources that you can use on your own time. And ISSA have monthly meetings, and they are available like all over the world, so different chapters. So find a chapter closest to you and mingle. And then before we get to the questions, I just want to say thank you to our sponsors. As you can see on the screen, they help make this event happen. And as you know, for virtual events, usually there's not a whole lot of cost to it, but not only did they help make this happen, they have donated money that will go into helping 11 women get security related training, which is the potential of really changing someone's life, right? It could be that one thing that you needed. And I want to, as a thank you to you for attending this event, the audience that is, I would like to consider 2 people for this opportunities. And I'm going to drop the link in the chat for you to quickly complete a survey for us. And you could be one of those people that enjoys this training. So thank you so much to the sponsors. Wait, we're not done because we still have to do a couple questions. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so that brings us to the questions. One of the questions that I saw here, People and some of the panelists answered them, but I'm going to throw this one out here. It says, I work on a team of all white Christian men. The company is small but growing quickly. How can I encourage diversity in our hiring and how to position diverse leadership? I think in summary, how can I make joining a team of all white men more accessible to a female new hire? Who wants to go first on this?
I'd be happy to say something on that. One of the things that I've seen larger corporations doing that has become very effective, because they've done studies that show that diverse organizations are more profitable and just are run better. And there are many reasons for that. But one of the things that can really help is unconscious bias training. And if you're not doing that, no matter how large the organization is, it's something that can be very helpful, because if you have a very kind of homogenous group of people, and there probably is going to be a collective bias as well as an individual unconscious bias. So just doing some training like that, bringing people's awareness to those biases, can be extremely helpful in cultivating a culture of diversity. That, from my perspective, I'm sure there are others who have other suggestions as well.
I like what you said too, Rebecca, about the data. There is data out there that shows clearly, you know, how a company is run better, how things work better. If you bring that back to your owners, your board, your leadership team, you know, presenting the data along with pieces like this, I think, you know, it's a little hard to argue it when you see the data.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one other thing to add is, sorry, Rebecca, were you
No, go ahead.
Okay. One other thing I wanted to add is this might be a little bit more strategic, might take a little bit more effort, and might be something to do even after you have that training. But I found, sort of in my project management history, that being a little bit strategic about it sometimes helps. Sometimes it's easier to go in and try to find that maybe one person that you are able to form a connection with or network with or find commonalities with, and use them as a vessel to get buy-in from the larger group. It's a lot easier to just attack it as if you are alone in that, maybe with a manager, the leader and the leader, or maybe a lead on the team, try to get their buy-in, and sometimes it's easier to partner together in that mission to move it forward.
That's actually a great point. It goes back to the, sorry if I'm interrupting you, but finding that one person you can influence, who has influence on the rest of the team, sometimes goes a long way in breaking that kind of the silo or something which is like unintentional biases built into the system. It helps in breaking that, because you have crossed that bridge, and then slowly that becomes much easier for the rest of the organization. So that was a great point, sorry.
And what Deepa said was important too, because it's not always the person who has actual power who has legitimate power, right? Yeah. So knowing who the influencers are, even if they're not the leaders, is really important too.
Yeah, I like that point. And if someone's a leader on paper, it doesn't always mean they're a leader, a true leader within the organization. You can kind of see who the true leaders are just based on their interactions with others.
Probably also anticipating who your negative person will be, right?
Yeah.
Because you need to know who that person who's going to really stop your initiative and figure out how to address that before they do.
One thing, donuts. Give them, feed a lot of it to the negative people. Thank you for those points. Here's another question. This says, I have 25 years of experience pursuing my master's in cybersecurity. For some reason, I never get included or given opportunities to grow. Any help on how I can improve my position? Who wants to go first on that?
I'll take that one. One thing that's helped me, especially having been in my role for a long time, is doing what I call 360-degree peer reviews. And, you know, Apple brought up a good point. You know, having mentors that are from different parts of the industry or outside of your company is important, and having them be not like you. But also in your own company, getting that feedback. How do people perceive you? And be ready for the feedback. Sometimes it's hard to accept, but if you're really serious about moving forward, you want to find out from different people in your organization what their perception is, and then work on really changing that, making an effort to be out there in a different way.
Awesome, I like that. I want to add one of the things, there was, I believe, a video that I watched. The lady that was presenting said, you want to have, like, talk to like your boss's boss. So instead of asking your boss's boss for feedback on how you're doing, consider asking like your boss's boss or your boss's peers how you're doing, because some of them are going to be in that room when they're making a decision, right? When your boss is going to promote you, they're just not going to sit in the room by themselves. They're going to sit in the room with other people in the company, and you want to make sure that that they have a good impression of who you are, and you know, and it's in line with your bosses as well, and to really get to that next level. So I thought that was really good advice. I want to share that. Anyone else wanted to comment on that? Okay. All right. I think I did see a question in the chat. Okay, that was just related to the resource group. I don't see any other questions. If you still have questions that you want us to answer, please drop it in. Otherwise, we have 15 minutes left. Look at that.
I would like to express one thing, if I could. I don't know how many people on the call are already in security or just interested in it. I think one of the things about security is that it's very vast. And I think that some parts of our industry and our education of the industry has created this idea that it's all penetration testing or all super technical, and it's not. I think it's really important for you to understand and to try to figure out what parts of the security area do you want to pursue or that even exist, right? When I used to talk to my female students who were challenged, they might have been the only male in their classroom. I used to, you know, say to some of them that, you know, were worried about not being quite as technical as their male peers. And I would say, well, then maybe you need to lead those peers rather than be their peer, right? And so just kind of understanding what is your value and how does that fit? So like, for instance, I find that, you know, compliance is not an area a lot of people gravitate towards, but some people really love that zone. And that zone is something that is good for, I've seen accountants who want to change careers do really well in compliance. You know, I've seen people who have a degree in accounting go into compliance, knowing that some of those areas are more about soft skills than they are about technical skills. And understand that one of the things I love about information security is I think that there is a space for everyone if that's what they want to do, because there's different skill sets for different pieces of security, and we can all be part of that, whether you're super technical and you want to work in the SOC, or you're an excellent communicator and want to do what I do.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Matt just dropped a question in the chat, and this goes to everybody. Can you tell us what the favorite part of being in security is for you? So why should someone go down this career path? So I'm going to start up with Toni on this.
Oh, thanks. One of my favorite parts about security is you never get bored. There's always something new coming out that you can learn about. There's all these different companies that are popping up on the horizon all the time. New ways of networking, new ways of securing backgrounds as far as data, applications, you name it. So that's one of the things I love. It's just you never get bored and there's always something new to learn.
Thank you. And Rebecca?
Yeah, Well, I kind of look at security as is we're in that phase of building and you're constantly building this immune system for the world, essentially. And by, all of us collectively doing a good job with it. And so, I mean, one of my favorite things is just kind of using my innate skills to really help. I feel like I'm really doing something that's helping others. And I know that, in this field, it's very underserved. There aren't enough people. The supply and demand isn't quite even and so, that's why it's very important for women to get involved, and anybody who has an interest to get involved. But you really are, doing a great service to society.
Thank you,
And
Rebecca.
Yeah.
Asia?
So without being in security directly, I will say a lot of what I have experienced that has given me a lot of joy is really being able to sort of connect. We have a problem, right? And then these are the opportunities to solve that problem. And you can address it from so many different ways without you just saying, I think one of the things, I'll go back to an acronym my mom usually says, it's more than one way to skin a cat. So what's funny is that I'll go through an assessment with one piece of software and it'll come out and say, this has been addressed, but then we go to another vendor and they have a similar issue, but they've tackled that problem in a completely different way. So I'll just say the diversity in the ways that you can solve problems, the diversity in how to apply that. And I really did like Rebecca's point about what you say about the immune system, building immunity of, building immunity. So I think that was really good as well.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
I did like the immunity too. So from what my team does, we're like the signs that are on the wall that tell you to wash your hands for all of our end users, right? Because we work with them, right? And we make sure to lock their systems down as best we can to try to keep them safe, right? We do all the recommendations we can. We go back to that education piece of don't click on links and emails that you're not, so that you don't know who the person is from, right? All of the best practices that people see and read, we help reinforce those. And it's really awesome, right? Because we also get to do a lot of tinkering with machines and setting things up for security settings to make sure not only is it safe, but usable too, right? It's that balance, because I think the joke always is that the safest computer ever is one that's not hooked up to the network, right? That's the only way to make it safe and secure. So we have to do that balance. For me, it was really unique. I was in security for a very short time when we created the executive support team at Michigan State. I reported directly to the chief security officer at the time. And I was in those meetings where they're talking about penetration testing and forensics, and I'm like, I understand some of these words, but it was like, hey, we're going to do these things. We're going to shut this off. We're going to put up this SWAF. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And I'm like, that sounds great. However, and it's awesome that we're trying to keep our data safe, but how does that affect our end users, right? So if we put this system in place, that means that they're going to have to do X, Y, or Z, whatever it is, differently, and that's going to affect their business. And so I got to use my voice to be able to be a voice for the end user in those meetings. So again, I think that there is a lot more insecurity than, to everyone's point here. It's not just penetration testing. It's not just forensics, which are a lot of fun and really cool, by the way. But there are a ton of opportunities in security. And I think that if you work in IT in any form or function, innately security is your responsibility, right? It doesn't, I could be a receptionist in a doctor's office, but if, I got to keep my computer updated, I've got to make sure I'm not clicking the wrong links, because then I'm putting everyone at risk. So I think it's that education piece that's really important.
Thank you. Deepa?
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Yeah, that.
Absolutely. So whatever everybody said, I was listening to, and I could relate to a lot of that, right? Toni mentioned about there is always something new and exciting, whether it is technology, just the new ways security is being breached, and being connected to the customers, solving real life problems for the customers. All that is very interesting. But for me, I feel that this is one area where creativity is really, really, really important. Staying 2 steps ahead. There is no one way to do the things. I think that was also covered, but that's where, as a creative person, I can apply my imagination of, here is another use case, how the hackers might be thinking about, right? So that side of it is always keeping you on the edge. If you are a person who wants to pursue and look for different things, there is never an end or a boring moment in security space. So I enjoy thinking from that angle and in my job. Thanks.
Thank you. Apple?
Well, I think for me, it goes back to feeling a little bit like Wonder Woman, right? I really enjoy, like Elizabeth said, I spent my entire tech career, I call myself the liaison between the techies and the non-techies. And when I was teaching, a lot of the classes I taught were either freshmen who were not technical majors and teaching them some tech, or teaching tech majors business. And so I felt very strongly about creating that connection. And in what I do now, you know, I get to get in front of users who I consistently challenge that when any tech person doesn't think the user cares, that's not true. All users want to be safe if they can, and they want to do what they can do. They just need to know what that is, right? And so when I go in and I train and can get them to just feel a little bit more like they can control their own security or know who to call when they need to, and be able to teach them in a way that they might be able to take that home and help their home environment. I mean, I believe very strongly as an awareness person that you have to meet people where they are, right? And so I tell people that teaching the users how to secure themselves personally just makes them a more secure person. Doesn't really matter if what they heard was how I fixed my home situation, that will translate into the work situation. And so any way that I can get a user to be more excited about what they can do for security, especially understanding phishing, right, is just a way to get them further along. And it just makes me excited. I always say the best training class I can do is the one where someone at the end says, oh no, I have to go home and change all my passwords. So I know they heard me, right? Or I often get comments like, oh, wow, that's really scary. Well, if you're scared, you're listening and you're going to change your behavior. And so I think that's the thing I love the most, is just making that connection with those people who feel like they're not technical, like they can never understand it, and just giving them that piece that's for them, and doing the same on the other side with the technologists. When I do communications for projects and a technical person on the team wants to add things to communication, and my favorite phrase is, well, why does a nurse need to know that? Right? And they'll say, but we spent 6 months on this. I'm like, okay, but that's your job, right? Like, if this doesn't affect the user, why does the user need to know? Right? The nurses don't ask you to come in and take their training classes, which there is a lot of them, right? So knowing where that line is between what is effective to share to a user and what is just noise to the user, right? And you know, we as tech people love our acronyms. I think I always make the joke that it makes us, you know, give us more job security, right? Because we have a language we speak. But in the end, those are not things we need to like put into the user's hands, right? Like, I will challenge people, like, why did you use the term URL? Do you think everybody knows what that is? Right? Why can't we just say web page, right? It's those simple little things that change the mind of the user and want to have them engaged. Because if all they hear is the terminology that they are not skilled in and don't need to be, then they just shut down. So that's what I enjoy, is really creating those connections and those pathways between those two areas.
Yeah. I loved all the responses. Thank you so much. I always say the field of technology, which security is just one area of, is more of an art than it is science. It's not cookie cutter. There's no one problem is the same, no one solution that fits all. And for me, I really enjoy those unique scenarios and going in and trying to figure out what solution actually works for that is the favorite part of this job for me. And with that said, we still have a couple questions, but we are 1 minute. And so 1 minute left, so we're not going to answer those, but feel free to connect to any of this amazing panelists on LinkedIn. Look them up, connect with them, ask those questions. I'm sure we'll do something maybe when we're sharing this video, we would try to add answers to this. I think there's only like 2 or so that we didn't answer. We'll make sure that we answer those for you as well. So overall, thank you so much for coming. And I hope to see you all out in the community, on social media, and where else.
And remember, if you try to like us on a LinkedIn, you have to give us a real message as to why we know you. Not just some random thing, right?
Thanks to Joanna and Lindsay and Matt. I think you guys did an awesome job organizing it.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I don't know who else was.
Nice job, everyone.
Yeah, I will just throw in real quick, and I know Joanna mentioned, I mean, first of all, amazing stuff. I think everyone, we could have done this for hours, right? And it's fascinating topics, and you guys are all amazing. All of your employers are more than lucky to have you in their ranks. I did just want to throw out, Joanna mentioned it, but she does have that forum out there. We were, the Global Cloud Security Alliance was gracious enough to give us 5 self-paced training opportunities for the CCSK, which is a really hot certification right now around cloud security. And then a huge thanks again to Gigamon and Forescout for providing the extra funds that will pay for another 6 people to get a CompTIA Anytime online training as well that can prepare you for like Network Plus, Security Plus, A+ type certification. So if you want to be considered for one of Joanna's spots, she'll be making the determination on the folks that are going to get those. Take advantage, right? So again, with that, everyone, I super appreciate it. This was an awesome turnout, an amazing panel, which I knew it was going to be. So again, thanks everyone, and we will see you all again real soon.